Hi everybody, I just wanted to leave a custom review for Tuin log cabins. This is my log cabin. I paid about 1,500 quid for it. That's without the building, that's me building it myself. I also had to construct a base. Because my garden slopes away, it may look like it's on the lean, but I mean that is completely straight. So the base I've made is from concrete and from slabs, and you've got to be very careful with your run out. You need to make sure that across the entire length you've only got 1 or 2 centimeters deviation. It really wants to be bowling green flat. A centimeter dips here and there, not so great. Or you'll end up with the logs splitting apart. And if you go to Tuin's website, you can see where customers haven't built them straight and they can split apart. So get your base absolutely flat and straight. And remember, the floor is floating, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's important that the middle of your base is just as flat as the edges. I didn't realise that when I built it, so I made some mistakes. Firstly, let's talk about delivery and getting hold of them. When I first contacted the UK Tuin guys, it was hard to get hold of anyone. I found that they didn't phone me back. I found they were much less aggressive than all the other log cabin sellers. In fact, I had to phone them up and say, I'm not going to buy from you, before they actually did phone me back and speak to me. So I guess that shows that maybe they are a good company because they don't do pressure sales. You have to chase them to buy one. I was later told that they have a messaging service. So each time I phoned, because they're a small company, the messaging service weren't passing the messages on. And when I did actually get through to them, they're incredibly helpful. And the guy I think I spoke to there was Richard, and he was amazing, willing to spend as much time with me as I needed, which is handy because the instructions that these things come with are completely useless. And in fact, they do say that, and they do provide you with a video and web links and all kinds of other bits to tell you how to build it. So throw the paper it comes with away. Obviously check all the bits are there. My bits are all there. There was even some spare bits. There's quite a few spare bits. In fact, it was the spare bits that confused me. So when you do get your log cabin turn up and it comes on a massive crate in an enormous truck, I've got another garage here. You can see I've got like a triple garage here for my cars. It's hard to see with the sun on this camera. Garage here, and this came on a much smaller truck than the Tuin one did, so I assumed that this would also fit, but they had to forklift it down. I mean, the pallet it comes on is spectacularly large. So this is the pallet it comes on. You can see that's, the Trans Am under that cover is 17 foot long, so you can see it comes on a 17-foot pallet by about sort of 5-6 foot wide, and it's very big and very heavy. But the guy's very skillful. He got it at my gates and he put it here. Some of the wood here you can see is leftovers, and some of it's just general scrap. Sorry, I've got my tip pile here to go down the tip with. You can see there's some sort of spare packing bits. So let's talk about building the log cabin and the kind of things you've got to get right. Let's go back across. So the massive mistake I made was I did not realise that the things that look like floor joists were actually the base layer of the cabin. So what you can see here is there's a starter log, which is a half log, and it's kind of half because it fits in the bottom half of the first full log. So I assumed this went on the floor, and in Norway it does, but in the UK you have like a sacrificial one here that's externally treated. Now I've treated this with about 15 different things, including wax oil under seal to make sure it doesn't rot. But what I did was I built the entire log cabin, but realised I forgot this. So I then had to jack up the entire log cabin, put these under, and it was Richard who very kindly guided me through doing that. So I've done that. I've used a damp coarse membrane. Strongly recommended that you do that. The reason I've had to staple it up like that is because my base is not perfectly flat. That was my personal choice. That's probably not recommended by them. But building it actually goes up very quickly. If you follow their online video, you kind of get the first few layers in and then you straighten it up, and then you put a few more in. Then when you get halfway up, you kind of slide the doors in, and then you keep going up, and then you kind of get to the roof and slide these massive joisty ones in the top. Of course, while you're doing this, there is no floor in it, so the floor is built afterwards later, so you don't mess with that. So you get it up. But what the other thing I did was I pre-treated the doors, the door frames, all of these bottom ones with an extra coat. You can probably see that the first full log there is slightly darker, because I thought, well, if it's nearer the ground, I'll put more coats of treatment on it. It obviously comes in bright spruce. I can't tell the difference between pine and spruce, but they tell me that this is spruce. And then I've used 2 coats of a oil-based preservative. It's a shame it's not wet anymore, because it does bead up. It totally beads, and you can see the beads sitting on the surface that then just drip off. I haven't yet finished around the base. I'm not sure if I'm going to put a French drain in there, or if I'm going to put the turf pack that I took out. Several options for your roof. I've used shingles. Unfortunately, even though I installed them exactly as they say, they have blown off, and it's always these ones here. I don't know if because it creates a bit of a tunnel through the side of my house here, and it's picking them up. So I've re-nailed them on using bigger clout nails, and more of them, because the instructions are very precise and tell you exactly you must use 3, you must put them in these places, and there's a first row of upside down, and you've got to do everything in a certain way. But I can't get those couple to stay on. But it has been the windiest for many years, record-breaking windy recently. So let's have a go inside and generally have a chat about it. I was worried the door wouldn't fit. I don't know why. I was convinced the door would not fit, but it just slid in and it fits absolutely perfectly, and it opens and it closes perfectly. I was really surprised with how well the door fits. So we go inside. Now you're not supposed to put anything of any weight on the walls, really, because it could pull the logs apart. Because remember, these are sort of like a very big tongue and groove that you bang together with a mallet, but you've got to bang them together quite gently, because you'll break the tongue above. It's handy I've picked this one, because this shows one of my few criticisms of this. You can see here there's joins there, they've spliced that together, and there's several joins on this one that you can see there's a join there. We spliced in a join there with a knot in it, so they're spliced in, and I think that shows maybe a slight lack of quality. You can see it seems to be these ones, there's a lot of joins on them. I feel maybe these should have been complete logs. Most of the others are complete logs, and I can find very few joins in the others, but it's quite a minor criticism. It's probably not going to affect its lifetime in my lifetime, you know, so there we are. But anyway, I've put insulation in the roof. They recommend you don't do that. I've put floating insulation in. So basically there's an expansion gap around all this insulation, of a few mil either way, and it's only just pushed up. So if the log cabin does expand or contract, it will just push the insulation out. I was just experimenting with some foil on this one, mainly because my parts washer will be underneath it, and if it catches fire, it will just flash off that. But that's neither here nor there. So I've put that insulation in. I've put electrics in. You can see there's a consumer unit there, etc, etc. I've still not quite got the steel wire armour cables sorted properly yet. I'll do that when the ground's less hard, because it's the middle of winter. While we're here, let's talk about the floor very quickly. So this is the floor, comes in a load of packs, and the floor joists are very thin. I think they're 5 centimetres square. They're very, very small, and you sort of bolt them together and join them up, and then you run the tongue and groove across it. I mean, I find I had loads of tongue and groove left. I've got so much tongue and groove left that this old shed here I'm going to repair with the tongue and groove I've got left, because there's so much. Actually, same with shingles. We've got so many shingles left that the ones that don't blow off and I replace, I'm going to put on my shed to replace on that one. It took a long time to do the floor. I was doing it single-handedly, admittedly. So yeah, the floor was quite a long job. Again, you leave an expansion gap around the floor. So every time you do anything in here, you leave an expansion gap. So on my shelves up there, I've left a centimetre or so from the wall, just in case anything expands and contracts. And the shelves are bolted on the same log. So if the log moves backwards and forwards, it won't tear 2 logs apart on the screws. There isn't a huge amount of weight on those shelves. There's a few machine tools, but there's nothing of any weight. I've got a very heavy 1920s lathe here, a Bowley. What I've done is I've put some floorboards, some modern house floorboards on top of the tongue and groove, and screwed them down, again a centimetre away from the edge, to spread the weight of the lathe and make sure it's stable. And it certainly seems to be stable and still. Same with everything else I've installed. It's all slightly off the wall, just to make sure, if there's any expansion and contraction. I found that the knots here, some of them leak slightly. You can see here where the external wood grain, the external wood stain colour has come through the knot. I've not had any water come through, so I'm assuming that's probably filled it when I've treated it, and over the years it will be okay. The window leaks a tiny bit, not a huge amount. Again, I could put some fill around that. There's a small gap at the top of the door, and the only damage I had anywhere on the kit was a small dent on the aluminium trim at the bottom of the door. I may have done that when I unpacked it. I don't believe I did, because the plastic wasn't damaged, so I don't know if I did. Anyway, I don't care. It isn't enough to worry about. The rest of the kit was perfect. It all slots together very nicely. Don't underestimate how much time it takes to do this. It took me and a friend a day to build the actual log cabin. Then it took me more than a day to do the shingles on the roof. Then it took me about a day to do the floor. It took me about a day to do all the wood treatments. And then it took me more than a day to move my stuff in. But, and then a day to do the electric. So you're looking at, quite a lot of days to do it. So my wife said I should have paid them to build it. And apparently you can have one built for about £300 or £400. And that might have been money well spent. But at least I know I've built it to how I want it. And, it was good experience and a good learning curve to do the building. And of course, the guys building it wouldn't have put my insulation up. They wouldn't have done the electrics, etc. That's an extra job. Overall, I'm very impressed with the design. I'm very impressed with everything about it. It's incredibly warm in here compared to my traditional Warwick Buildings garage over there. I guess that's not really comparing like with like, because this is a much smaller space, but I find that with my insulation in the roof and my body heat in here, when it's 0 out there, even without double glazing, when it's 0 out there, in here with just my body heat, it's enough to keep it warm enough to work in, even when it's 0 outside. I've got a small heater there. If I have it on for a few minutes, it gets very hot in here, so I have it on literally for a minute or two if it's a little bit cold when I first get in, and then my body heat will keep it up to temperature. I've not used it in the summer yet, so I've yet to see that. Like I say, I'm very impressed with this. I like it. It's a nice place to be in. The wood feels nice, and this is the natural colour. So internally, I've treated the wood with 2 coats. Internally, the stuff I use is some sort of Baratine wood preserver. I've used an oil-based one. I know that some people say you should use a water-based, but I chose that because it was cheaper. It was locally available. It's perfectly good. It comes well recommended. So they just didn't pay Tuin for a recommendation. So I'm not saying anyone else did, but I like the preserver I've used. It was good. Overall, very happy with the whole thing. Let's have a quick look outside, see if there's anything else. Oh, something else I added. I think these are available from the company, but these doors tend to swing open in the wind, and with this single pane glass, it will just smash. I'm not sure if this is sort of tempered safety glass or just greenhouse glass, but it would smash. So I've put these little pegs up. Obviously, the wind's trying to catch that now. But all of the chute fittings on the doors are very nice. Very, the bolts top and bottom, they fit perfectly. They were pre-drilled. And the instructions said I would have to drill them, but it was all drilled and it was all perfect. So that was quite impressive, actually. You can see there the trim boards I've put on. The shingles were difficult and did take a long time. I wasn't expecting how hard it would be. For me, the shingles were a free upgrade. I'm sure there'll be a different sale or something going on when you buy yours. You may get free shingles, or you may get money off to buy shingles or whatever. The shingles did take a long time and are much more difficult. But generally, perfectly, what I've done here is I've put mine quite close to the edge. There's enough room for maintenance and enough room to get in there. There we have it, really. Sort of 1,500 quid. Quite a nice place to be in. It's not ugly to look at. Yeah, lots of good help from the people. Even they've got online chats sometimes that I like. So there we have it.